and she's got, all right, cool. So she's got two that she recently came out with. There's Analog, a hate story, and then there's the sequel, which is Hate Plus, because, you know, you've got to augment the hate, I guess. And so, you know, not spoil too much, because it's pretty obvious. In Hate Plus, there's kind of the story of what went horribly wrong with this colony ship. And it becomes clear, pretty evident, that what happened was that the AI that ran the ship, the security AI, was supposed to keep it safe. The ship had been stranded, things were going horribly wrong, and it had been basically deleted and rebooted, right? And essentially died. And you're encountering the second incarnation of this AI. And the whole story, which again, this is right up front, so I'm not really spoiling anything. The whole story is kind of like the memory fragments the old AI managed to stash in its machine code, so that people could maybe learn what happened before it died and before kind of history got revised. So it's pretty powerful, right? You're like this character, you know, 1,000 years after everyone died, kind of going through the debris of this travesty. And it's all done in letter form, right? So everything's all these logs and things, these little fragments that are saved. So it's really cool because it's all writing and it's like this epistolary video game, which is pretty uncommon. And in it, you have all these little fragments, all these little memory blocks, and they're all there. And this cool thing occurs where you start to realize that the AI, you know, had this really like deep relationship with their security chief, like the human, right, who was in charge. You know, whether they were in love or anything is kind of up for question, but mostly they just really trust and respected one another. And you're going through all these data fragments, and there's all this like grid, and some of them are decodable, some are corrupted. And then you notice there's one, which is only available kind of on the last day, where it's the security officer's smile.jpg. So while this AI had seconds to stash the most important data, it saved a pic of a smile. And the game never points you at that. And it was like if our codex had some absolutely ninja field-crushing punch. And I was like, that's so cool! So again, what I love about that one is it's a system that kind of we use and that someone else has got, you know, similar, the entire game's wrapped around, and yet it's got this entirely new twist on it. Man, video games, wild frontier. I love that, absolutely. So again, that's kind of some thoughts on storytelling, some changes for Inquisition, some process, a little behind the scenes. I hope you enjoyed that, but I'm sure you guys have some Q&A. I believe microphones exist. If you guys want to line up on either, yeah, there they are, on either side. I'm going to join the guys here, and well, until they kick us out, I welcome your questions.
Hello. For each of you, which is your favourite party to take out with you in terms of party banter?
I love that question. So for me, that is, I would say it's Bull, Cassandra, and Sarah. And specifically, Sarah loves to needle Bull. Bull loves to needle Sarah. They basically, they pick at each other the entire time. But what happens is that Bull, he's got this deep respect for Sarah. They get on because neither of them wants to worry too much about things, right? So they both kind of like to careen through. And throughout it all, you have Cassandra occasionally just going, because that's kind of what she does. And yet, my favorite moments are when Bull's like, he turns the horns to Cassandra, and his deep, abiding respect for her as a warrior is the best thing. Because he'll be like, okay, Seeker, I got this thing. Do you think if I hit a guy down low, and you hit him up high, we can make him flip? It's like, I've always wanted to make a guy flip, and that's because it's like he's finally met someone as tough as him, and he's like, okay, what could we do? And hence why he wants to throw Sarah, right? It's all about these obscure combat mechanics. So that's mine.
I don't have a full party, but there's certainly pairs that you want to take through at certain points. The relationship between Barrett and Cassandra is quite brilliant. Yep. As Mike had mentioned, Sarah and Bull together is, well, actually, no, just take Bull. Bull's hilarious. But I actually really enjoyed the banter between Dorian and Vivi. They're two sides of the same coin.
And they're both so snooty.
And they're both so terribly snooty to each other.
So I think I'm going to continue the vein of the Iron Bull. He's probably my favorite character, although I do like to bring him and Barrick and anybody else. Because they always antagonize whoever it is that you bring with you, and it always ends up in the you have something serious and something serious is happening, and then as soon as that ends, and you're just trying to realize what's happened, all of a sudden there's a one-liner and or a joke about, did you see how far I hit that guy? So to me, the banter is I like the banter to be lighthearted and fun, and it makes me laugh about what I've just done. So that's my party.
And a similar vein to everyone to the right. The pairs, Cassandra and Barrick, with the history, that's pretty great to play through. For me, Bull's up there, but it's Sarah. Sarah and anyone. She's just so cheeky. She takes a piss out of everything. She's fantastic.
All right, we'll go over this side.
Alright, so one of the differences I've noticed between Bioware and similar types of games like The Witcher is that Bioware tends to make its morality very clear cut. What do you think of the pros and cons of making those decisions very black and white as opposed to much grayer types of morality?
I think that when you're presented with a scenario, what our approach is generally trying to and I think this is probably one of the core differences. So again, I respect what The Witcher does, because what they do is they tend to throw it at you hard and fast, so you don't have a lot of time to think, and that creates an intensity of its own. We tend to lean a little bit more towards what I think of as dilemma as our approach, and the thing about dilemma is that it has this kind of growing and mounting horror. I think that I'm not sure if we'll ever surpass Redcliffe, right? Because in Redcliffe you're like, oh, there's undead, and oh, there's a kid, and that kid's got a demon, and oh shit. and of course Redcliffe has a ton of different options, a ton of different ways it can resolve, but I mean, there's one that's okay, and the rest are all kind of horrible. And the thing is that we do try to kind of give you a sense of what's coming and what might happen based on the decisions you made. And I think that tends to make it feel more kind of clear cut, because you can kind of go, that's kind of a crappy steak both ways. And so that's something we do. So like Witcher 2 is like, throw me the sword kind of moment. It's like, wow, geez, I don't know, right? You're making that snap decision, and it's got power all its own. So that's kind of been our approach. In the future, I'd like to. You always want to mix it up, so we'll see what happens. Thanks.
Good evening, gentlemen. You mentioned all four of you that indie games have been the biggest inspiration in terms of role-playing, but with yourselves, Square Enix and CD Projekt Red being the only real big three competitors in the AAA role-playing market, do you think that role-playing as a AAA sort of genre is dying?
Ooh, wow. So I'd probably be more concerned about the future of role-playing if everybody under the sun weren't stealing our mechanics. When I level up my paddles as a medic in a shooter, I feel like there's still some legs. I think that the risk, right? This is the risk to role-playing games, is that there's been a fidelity race over the years. Square's always had their cutscenes and their massive extravaganzas. We've been pushing in the direction of the full EO, which again, hey, 4-player voice sets, that's pretty expensive, right? So there is a cost. There's an overhead to a role-playing game that almost is necessitated to be in the big space. And that's risky. But what we're seeing now, I think this is a big thing we're going to see in this console generation, is you guys have probably noticed this, that while things certainly look better, it's not that quantum leap that like PS1 to PS2 was, or PS2 to PS3. And so I think some of that arms race is mellow and out. So we get to the point where libraries can be built up again, where it's possible to build assets a little more cheaply. There's a lot more tools at our disposal. Without some of the advancements we've made in speed tree and terrain generation, stuff we couldn't possibly have built Inquisition. So I think that's going to be possible. And again, there's also that mix where there's kind of they're not a small deal, but they're not quite the big AAA, like your Wasteland 2s, your Pillars of Eternity, that kind of game is still very vibrant. I mean, you look at their Kickstarters knocking out the park, they sell well. So I think it's all there. It's just that there's been an investment as we go, but I think some of that risk is falling. So I actually think we might be in for an even brighter future.
Just to touch a bit more on what Mike was saying about mechanics being used in other places, it's not a bad thing. Like a lot of games that you wouldn't expect to have role-playing mechanics, or at least the mechanics that we use in them, have been made better for it. Like even sports games, like FIFA and PES. If you play their back-end team management stuff, that's all stuff that we've done and been doing for years and years and years. And the other side of it is that, again, if you look at the history and the evolution of the games we do at Bioware, it was all top-down, essentially faux turn-based strategy. And then we started incorporating action mechanics from brawlers, from other similar but not identical genres. And I really believe that we've been made better for it in a lot of those cases. So I'm not concerned that role-playing is going to die as a genre. I'm excited that it's going to change fundamentally into something that's even better.
Just add a little bit very quickly. I always feel like RPGs are the stargazers of video games, and they always want to go the big and epic. And with the new consoles, and you can create games that are vast and powerful that you want to make. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, I just got I have 5 minutes left assigned. So unfortunately, guys, I'm sorry, I really only have time for one more question, guys. So we'll go over here. I apologize, guys. Thank you for lining up. Let's hit it. We'll go
Thanks for coming, guys. Really appreciate you guys coming to PAX Australia. I think we all love having you here. My question is, what was the most difficult challenge for you making Dragon Age Inquisition?
It's a big list. It's hard to prioritize. I'm going to go with fundamentally rethinking how we generate content. Aidan.
Engine change, console generation change.
Please sell for Devon.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool, yeah.
Like what he said. also the immediacy of meeting technology and having to find a solution that not even exists to a problem that needs to be solved right now.
We touched on this actually earlier today, but for me, it's the engine change my team, technical design, tackling a lot of the problems, a lot of the challenges with all of them, from taking the effectively Battlefield 4 Frostbite engine, which is gorgeous, but not used to make an RPG until Inquisition. So a lot of growth needed there. We've come a long way, and 5 platforms, and 3 years later.
Thanks very much.
All right, here we go. Just to wrap up, hold on. We're not quick on. I have 1 minute left. All right, so a reminder, EA Community Lounge, floor 2. It's hard to find, but the quest will have great rewards. You can see us signing posters, you can get to play the game. I hear that's pretty cool. So please check that out. We're doing mini panels and stuff throughout the rest of today, and tomorrow we'll be heading up there after this. A reminder, I'm flying my colors here. The Dragon Age Keep just launched. You guys familiar with that? Yeah! Cool. If you haven't checked it out yet, the Keep is a web-based solution that lets you actually build up the world that you've created, or if you haven't played any Dragon Ages, then you can actually learn more about the Dragon Age world, make some decisions. Having that done, as of today, the build we have now will be valid. It will be the thing that gets imported into Inquisition for you, so you can start playing immediately when it launches. It is coming out at the end of this month. It is available on the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, the PS3, the PS4, and the PC. not to belabor the beasts, but there you go. Guys, so this is our first trip to Australia for everyone except Mark, who was made here. I hear he's been back, though his visa may not allow him to leave. But here's the awesome part. You guys have been incredible hosts. This has been a very excellent panel. Thank you for the questions we did get time to do. If you want to follow up with some more, we will be up in the community lounge. Thank you so much for having us.